Hey everyone. So our topic was focused on reduction on early voting days. Our team comprises of myself, Lumina, and Catherine. So the first part that we wanted to explore was really the cost of early voting days, just to give us, a viewpoint of what, the current costs are and like why this may be a problem right now. So statewide so far, $25.6 million is put into the full year of 2024 for election operations. And this doesn't include early voting, so this is early voting and regular voting. We looked at two counties in Maryland. We looked at Prince George's County and Montgomery County just to see what their current costs are for early voting. For Prince George's County, we saw that their costs are $1.3 million. That's an estimate right now, which is roughly 11% of the county election budget. And Montgomery County, it's roughly 1.1 million, like close to it as well. And this is based on either like election judge stipends, like overtime, also like transporting the actual ballots, printing ads, drop boxes. And we picked these two counties because no other counties have like separate early voting breakdowns. And so as you saw, there are several like cost drivers to this, and also you want to see the savings potential. So some cost drivers are, of course, the temporary staff that we need to have, the actual placement of the locations, over time. So Montgomery County we saw it was over $1 million roughly for early voting. And by applying this pattern to over 24 jurisdictions, this is roughly 45-60% of statewide early voting costs. And so, that's roughly 13 to 17 million of the total 27.8 million per year cost. And it's important to note this cost is shared between the state and the counties, so both have to, put in money into early voting days. And so by reducing days from 8 to 5 days, roughly the state can save 221.7 thousand a year, and counties can save 1.7 million a year starting in 2026. And so our main takeaway from this is that early voting is a high cost operation, and that by minimizing the amount of days that are used for this process, we could save millions and allocate resources to other election needs. The next part of our research really was about the amount of voters each day because we wanted to see if there were any, because there's an 8-day voting period. We want to see if there's any like peaks that happen or any like times where there's less voters. And there was. So basically, day 1 and 2 have a high output, basically roughly 150,000 voters. However, near the middle, like days 3, 4, and 5, it just tends to decrease, roughly 80,000 voters, but then back again up at day 7 and 8, it's back again to even 160,000. So there's clearly a trend where people would vote near the beginning and near the end of the voting period. So by making these days be like 5 or 6 instead of 8, we would have higher voter participation, all throughout the days. And also we wanted to see how this compares with other states, like what other states currently have for their early voting days. So like for example, Kentucky has like 3 days, Indiana has like 28. But based on our research, we saw that Maryland, it was currently working with 8, and we could reduce it to 5 or 6 and still properly provide, voting centers for people and allow them to vote.
So currently in the Senate, there's a similar bill, SB 18, sponsored by Senator Muse. So essentially, the bill titled Election Law Early Voting Number of Days aims to reduce the number of early voting days from 8 to 5. And so in terms of its progress, it's been referred to committee in the original chamber, which is the Education, Energy, and Environmental Chamber. So we also looked at the current support and oppositions to the bill. So in terms of support, number one, mail-in voting has become gradually popular. So there's a lot less of a reliance on in-person voting. Number two is that, as we mentioned before, early voting days are underutilized in the beginning and middle. And also, reducing the number of early voting days would decrease costs significantly. For opposition, number one is decreased access and flexibility to those who work, especially those who work earlier or later. And so our response to that is, while we can reduce the number of early voting days, we can also extend the opening times from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., which is the current opening times, to 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., which would allow more people who are busier later to come and vote. And also, we should make sure to include weekends in the voting days. The second main piece of opposition is that early voting days should be actually increased to increase access for people with disabilities. However, we believe a better way to increase access is to actually use the money we save from underutilized early voting days to invest in more accessible infrastructure and also expand on mail-in ballots. And the last piece is that it may prevent some people from voting. And however, we believe that there's better ways to increase voter engagement. So currently, around 25% of Maryland voters do not participate in voting. And so the number of people who would be prevented from voting because of reducing early voting days is way less than the number of people who generally don't vote. So instead, if we reallocate the savings toward greater voter engagement efforts, we would be increasing overall voter turnout by a lot. And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I really like the way you presented the response to opposition. That helped me understand a little bit as well. So thank you, Maria and Lumina. I think one question for Indiana, how can they do that for 28 days? Will that, do they have, probably don't have a dedicated voting center? Otherwise, that's a huge cost, I'm thinking. Did you actually had a look on that?
I mainly looked at the comparison of other states, like how many days they spend, but I can definitely look in the future for more like really specifically what they do during the actual like 28-day period.
Yeah, that's a huge time, right? It's a huge cost and the burden for everyone who are operating the domain. Because right now we even couldn't find enough election judges because it paid low and it doesn't really work well. So that okay, it's great presentation, great summary, and I think that's well done. Thank you. And Peyton,
Patton
you
has
raised your hand.
question. Patton has question on this, I guess.
Yeah,
Uh,
Peyton, go ahead.
I just to like, cause like when we were voting last time when I was voting, in California where I live, we had like people at parks, so like you could like turn in your vote during parks during the appointed period, and then I think everyone like there is, I'm pretty sure they're volunteering, so that could like probably help with the cost a bit. Just a potential idea.
I see. I see. Thank you, Peyton, for that insight.